Hola amigos, this is Level 12, and today we are back with KyoKoon. And this is part 2 of part 1. I'll link part 1 in the description, but this is specifically where Kyo is discussing the origin of 23.5 and how Hetalia got really horror and gory for a quick second there back in the early fandom. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Okay, I can go two options. One, do you want to hear about how the freaking Hetalia horror fandom happened? Do you want to hear about hidden game stuff? Two, do you want to hear how Hetalia 23.5 happened? Because that itself is an interesting story. And I was expecting it to be on there, and it's like, hey, I'm reading 23.5. You want an interview? And I'm like, oh, you're gonna ask how it was made?
No, I don't know why that wasn't one of my questions, but now I'm super curious. Please tell me.
Okay, so here's the origin, as it were, of 23.5.
Yes.
So it was back in 2012. I was introduced to it at a con by one of my friends, the concept of creepypastas, and I was like, yo, this is pretty cool. And they're like, yeah, I know, right? And I was like, yeah, there's not a lot of anime ones. No, not really. There's not any Italian ones. Yeah, not really. I should fix that. All right, go off, I guess. And so I was like, okay, okay. I gotta think of Italian creepypasta. What's a popular creepypasta? Doing something that the audience does not expect. Okay, what? Okay, it needs to be Italy. Italy's main character. That's one of the things. It always has to be main character that something horrible happens to. Okay, so it's got to be Italy. Okay, and I was thinking, and I was like, okay, I got two options. One, have an episode because lost episode stuff is really easy to do, especially when this was the time of bootlegs. There was
Yes.
no English dub. So I still have a bootleg DVD of the first season of Italia, because that's all that was available. Funimation's didn't get his hands on it till years later.
That's amazing because I have the entire first season on like multiple DVDs. I bought them legally, just sitting across from me. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
ours was I think a Chinese rip,
Oh my god, that's
but
amazing.
it's got English subs on it. But yeah, so it's all fan made and stuff like that. Because again, this was back when you could not buy that stuff. If you wanted a DVD, you had to buy it via fan made DVDs. So I was like, okay, okay, bootleg. That's something popular in the Pokemon fandom and stuff like that. Okay, so I have a basis to work it on. It was my sister's, but I stole it for this particular cause. And I was like, okay, okay, okay. I got two plots. One, something bad has to happen to Italy. So either Japan and Germany. What's something historical I can do with them? I mean, they're Axis. They're the three main characters. Okay, what if I had Germany and Japan beat the ever-loving hell out of Italy because he joined the Allies? Because it's like, oh, betrayal, friendship, that happened. I'm like, but that's also not like strange enough. Like that seems kind of chill. Let's put that on the back burner. So then I was thinking, and I'm like, okay, what else can we do? What's something wild? Oh, okay, I know. What if we took that island episode and have something horrible happen? Like they run out of food and end up cannibalizing each other. That's something. And then I thought some more. Like originally it was going to be the Allies doing it because America ate all the food because it's America.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, what if we combine them? Make it the cannibal, but Italy's the one at fault because he's useless. Yes. So I did that, wrote it all down as much as I could. I just BS the entire thing in one go.
It's fine.
And and so I was like, okay, okay, something's missing. Something is missing to give this a piece of deliciousness. And then I realized, what if I had evidence? Because evidence is the biggest thing that makes the creepiest creepypastas creepy.
Yeah.
For example, the Ben Drowned having the gameplay footage along with it. It was like, wow, that's super believable. Wow. When it was, just modded or corrupted.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what can I do? And then I realized I followed a Hetalia art impersonator. Like they were really good at imitating the Studio Dean art. And I was like, hey, you want a commission? Please? And they're like, sure. So I got the imitation art, slapped it on in there. No, not slapped it in there. They made it high quality because, you know, they're high quality. So I'm like, all right, time to mess this up. And I just put it through a lot of filters and layers and made it crusty. So it looked like it was like a really bad DVD rip.
Yes.
And then slapped it on there. And I was like, all right, good. Solid. And initially, I showed it to my friend, be like, I made a creepypasta. What do you think? They're like, it's okay, I guess. And I'm like, oh, is it not that good? Could be better. Oh, all right. You did all right for a first try, though. Oh, okay. So I didn't expect anything to come of it, but no.
Oh,
It was apparently really good. 5 also did not technically end with the first chapter. I have been sitting on that plot bunny for a long time, and there's been an official sequel made that I made, like a giant ass fanfic about the consequences of that action. There has been I've made alternate versions because there I'm like, what if that happened with this group? I'm like, what if that happened with this group? Like, what if it was the Allies instead, or what if it was the Nordics that was stuck in the situation? So there is a couple of those floating around my DeviantArt specifically, and some on Tumblr of my fan swaps, as it were. Is it fan swap if I did? I don't know. My other interpretations of groups. But nothing's been as popular as the Axis one, which I don't blame them because that was the one I put the most effort in. And Mr. Creepypasta, the one who also made 23.5 extremely famous, was because he actually read it for his channel. And I actually got to meet him once in person at a con that he was being a guest at. And I told him, like, hey, I'm the one who wrote Hetalia 23.5. And he's like, oh my god, really? I love that one. And, like, apparently he does like anime, but he doesn't have a lot of good anime creepypastas around. But he thought mine was one of the most, like, well-written of the kind and one of the most believable. So that's why that's, like, the only anime-related creepypasta on his channel outside of the Pokemon ones. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's so sweet!
Oh, that's
he gave me a shirt for free, and he's like, hey, you're cool, have a t-shirt. Whoosh. Thank you. I still have it.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love that for you. That's great.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. I recommend his readings. He has a really soothing voice.
I've listened to some of them. Not recently, though, but I have listened to him in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Very
good
nice.
dude. Good wholesome dude.
I was also really curious, like you mentioned, like the Hetalia fandom got really into like horror games, and I know the fandom now is a lot of my friends aren't really into horror that I've met through Hetalia, but I'm really curious on like how that happened. Cause like the fandom isn't like that anymore.
Moving on to the Hetalia horror thing, everyone's like, well, what's with the horror thing? Like, with that, like, okay, let's step back into the land of 2009.
Oh my god.
And that being when the first couple Hetalia fan games were coming out, and surprisingly, Hitaoni was not the first. It was one of the few. But I want to say the first proper Hetalia fan game was Gloria Hetalia, which was a fantasy game, one that Hema actually was aware of, and he was so enamored with it, he actually drew fan art for it that can still be found. Which is like, whoa, the dream. But, so the first few fan games, again, they're all Japanese, they were fantasy-based, usually. You got HitaQuest, which is about Italy and Italy and America going into this fantasy world. You got Gloria Hetalia, which is about Feliciano going on a quest, and teenage HRE / knight, whatever, was going with him on this quest. And yada, yada, yada. Hita-Hazard, that's it, was kind of also in that horror range, but not as much. Not to mention it was also a little later. But then you got Hitaoni, which is based off of Aoni, which was also still getting really good updates at the time, so that was nice. But it didn't really explode until the 2010 Christmas Bloodbath. That's when it really took off, because with these erratic updates that would sometimes happen at 5 a.m. and sometimes be late, sometimes take a few days, people were bored. And, like, just this thing was so hyped up. Not hyped up, but this plot was so interesting because you had nations disappearing. You had nations being taken out by this mysterious beast. And it was wild. It was crazy. There was so much mystery going on. Oh, what the hell? to the fact that everyone was like, "Oh, we're on the edge of our seats, but there's nothing we can do." So they were like, hey there, have this big long game series that you can watch while you wait." So Hitaoni was being passed around to everybody of like, "Hey, have some angst to fill your time while you're waiting for this." And so it exploded in popularity because it was just passed around within like a couple months. So now everyone knew about it and everyone was itching for it. And it was like, yes, yes. And so when the everyone wanted a piece of that pie, both game makers and game and content creators alike, of hey, this made a lot of angst, I want to do that too. And so, not to mention, this was also the same time that horror was becoming super popular within the Let's Player community, which I also think is a big reason why Hitaoni got so popular as well, because it was also something that everybody, Aoni, the original one, was being passed around to like PewDiePie, Markiplier, um, whoever was freaking popular back then. And so that was a lot of and that was also the years of Amnesia, Mad Father, The Witch's House. So a lot was just bang, bang, bang. You're just covered wall to wall with your favorite people doing horror games, and then you have your favorite fandom being a horror game. So you're like, oh man, I really want in on this. So that's why a lot of the fandom back then was so horror based, especially when it hit 2012 and you got that 2P. Because then everyone's like, yes, antagonists, horror, blood, gore, evil. So everyone was just gnawing at the bit to have that hole, that void of horror and angst. But now we've come to a point where people are like, you know what? No, we have a lot of that. Let's going back to fantasy for a bit. And it's like, yes, please. Because boy howdy, I remember there was a time when there was nothing but like, oh, the murder house, the suicide room, the head apocalypse, which is a good game by the way, but still. But yeah, that's just everyone wanted their hand at that dark, dark piece of pie. Because everyone's like, Hetalia comedy, making it sad and dark with all this horror inspiration around them. They're like, oh my god, give me that. So that's why and how Hitaoni got so popular. But then the oversaturation kind of made everyone also go, I don't know, and kind of lean off to do other genres, which again, thank God. No, I also admit that I too was a sucker, a sucker for that the horror stuff. I tried making horror games, didn't go out so good, but that's also that's also a difference that I had. I was not introduced to Tomoyoshi's work, who made Hitaoni. I was not introduced to it with Hitaoni. I was introduced to it to Roma Heta, which was also an extremely fantasy based game. So I wanted to emulate Roma Heta more than Hitaoni, but they just kind of clashed.
That's so interesting. Listen, I'm so enamored to hear about the old fandom. And I remember, I was not into Hetalia, but I remember when things like Mad Father and Ib and that big horror thing was being played, like you said, by the big YouTubers, which is partially why I love horror now. The little seed was planted. But yeah, no, I can totally see why. I never thought about the correlation with that was what was going on at the time. Oh, that's so cool. I love this. Listen, I'm sorry, I want to be a history major and like this.
No. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. I don't get to talk about this stuff very often, so I'm just like, yeah, I
Yeah.
was there, Gandalf.
Oh no, I love that so much. It's so great. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this process. It was super fun to interview her. She's very nice. I highly recommend you check her out for her games and her Let's Plays. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more random fandom things. Ciao, chicos.